My name is Mia, and I'm 25 years old. I work as a software developer in Seattle now, but my life today is completely different from how I grew up. Breaking free from my mother's control wasn't easy, but it shaped my journey to independence. I grew up in a small town near Portland with my mother, Eleanor, who controlled every aspect of my life. My childhood wasn't like most kids. She dictated everything I could do, leaving no room for freedom. There were no allowances, no sleepovers, and no decisions of my own. If I stepped out of line, the punishments were harsh, skipping dinner or losing things I loved. Watching other kids live freely felt like a distant dream. Even when I excelled in school, my mother always had her own plans for me. She chose which college I would attend, ignoring my wishes. I wanted to study in an exciting, bustling city, but she forced me into a small college close to home, keeping her grip on me. College, though, was my first taste of freedom. After graduating, I took a leap and moved to Seattle for a job at a big tech company. For the first time, I felt in control of my life. I found a small apartment in the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Life in Seattle was exciting. I loved simple things, walking to work, choosing my own groceries, and making my own schedule. At first, everything was perfect, but soon, strange things started happening. Weird phone calls and unsettling messages. Nothing serious, but enough to make me uneasy. I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid after years of being controlled. One evening, my neighbor Mr. Carter knocked on my door. He was a friendly graphic designer, a little older than me and always kind. "Mia, can we talk for a moment?" he said, his voice serious but warm. "Of course, Mr. Carter." "Is something wrong?" I asked, trying not to show my unease. He looked concerned. "I just saw someone acting strangely near your apartment. I think they might have been trying to get inside." My chest tightened. I hadn't noticed anything unusual, but the idea of someone breaking in made my stomach churn. "Are you sure?" "Maybe it was just someone passing by," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'm certain. You should check it out," he said firmly. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, my heart racing. At first, everything seemed normal. Then I noticed something odd, a purse sitting on the table that wasn't mine. It was a fancy designer purse, completely out of place. Feeling uneasy, I opened it and found a note inside. My hand shook as I read it. "I'm sorry, Mia. I had to come. I've been watching you. I needed to make sure you're okay." My breath caught. The note was from my mother, Eleanor. She'd been here. A mix of anger and disbelief hit me like a wave.
How had she found me?
Then I realized the purse was a gift from her. She must have hidden a tracking device inside. She'd been watching me the whole time. I turned to Mr. Carter, who had followed me inside. "It's my mom," I said, holding up the note. "She's been tracking me with this purse. I can't believe she would do something like this." He looked sympathetic.
"I'm so sorry, Mia."
"That's such a huge invasion of your privacy." I clenched my fists. I need to confront her. This has to stop. The next day, I found the address where she was staying. It was a small, rundown apartment near my old town. As I walked up to her door, my hands were shaking, but I knew I had to do this. I knocked, and after a moment, she opened the door, her face a mix of surprise and guilt. "Mia," she said softly. "I wasn't expecting you." I stepped inside, barely holding back my anger. "You weren't expecting me? You've been tracking me, Mom. How could you invade my privacy like this?" Her face turned red. "I just wanted to make sure you were safe. I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what?" I cut her off, my voice rising. "Control me? You've been following me for who knows how long. This isn't about safety. It's about you not letting go." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't back down. "Everything I've done has been for you. I just wanted to protect you." "Protect me?" I shouted. "By smothering me? By refusing to let me live my own life? I'm 25, Mom. I'm an adult now. I need to live my own life." Tears streamed down her face.
"I'm sorry, Mia."
I didn't know how to let go. I've made mistakes, but I didn't know how to fix them. I felt a mix of pity and anger. "Mom, it's not just about the tracking. You don't realize how much control you've had over my life. Then she said something I didn't expect. I've been struggling with money. I wanted to ask you for help, but I didn't know how. Her confession felt like a slap. So you spied on me because you needed money? How could you even think that was okay? She nodded, her voice barely audible. I've been in debt. I thought if I kept an eye on you, I'd figure out how to ask for help. My anger boiled over. You've been manipulating me my entire life, and now you're using this as an excuse? This isn't love, Mom. This is control, and I can't take it anymore. She reached out, her hands trembling. Mia, please. I didn't mean for it to get like this. I'm sorry. Her words felt empty. I took a deep breath. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep letting you control my life. It has to stop. I left her apartment feeling both heartbroken and determined. It was clear I needed to take drastic steps to protect my independence. It wasn't just about the tracking or her asking for money. It was about breaking free from years of manipulation and finally living life on my own terms. Back home, I made immediate changes. I got a new phone, updated my security, and began searching for a new apartment far from my current one. I even contacted a lawyer to legally separate myself from her, ensuring she couldn't interfere in my life again. Each step brought a mix of relief and sadness. Breaking away wasn't just about physical distance. It was about rebuilding my sense of self after years of emotional control. Mr. Carter, my neighbor, turned out to be an unexpected source of support. He helped me with the logistics of moving and offered a listening ear when things felt overwhelming. His kindness was a small but welcome comfort during such a chaotic time. When I moved into my new apartment, I felt both free and uncertain. The space was bright and modern, with big windows that let in sunlight. It felt like a new beginning, even though the weight of my past still lingered. The legal separation was a significant step. My lawyer assured me it was routine, but to me, it marked the end of an exhausting chapter and the start of something entirely new. Unpacking in my new home became a way to reflect. For the first time, I felt like I had control over my life. The process was bittersweet, but I knew I was on the right path. My journey to independence wasn't over, but I was ready for it. I had faced my fears, confronted my mother, and taken back my life. Now, it was time to focus on healing and building a future that truly felt like mine. Mr. Carter was always there for me. He helped with the move and became a constant source of support. Many evenings were spent just talking, sharing stories about anything and everything. His calm, steady presence was a relief after the chaos I'd been through. For once, it felt good to talk to someone who wasn't trying to control me. One night, as we sat in my new apartment, he asked a question I'd been avoiding. "You've been through a lot," he said softly. "How are you doing?" I glanced around the room, noticing the empty spaces where my old life had once fit. "It's been crazy," I admitted. "I feel like I'm finally starting to breathe again, but it's hard to let go of everything that happened." He nodded, his understanding evident. "It's a lot to process, but you're doing great. This new place, all the changes, you're taking control of your life." His words meant more to me than I could express. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful, as if not everything in my life had to be defined by negativity. In the weeks that followed, I began settling into my new routine. I focused on personal projects I had long neglected, rediscovering the joy they brought me. I reconnected with old friends whose support eased the transition. Yet, even with these positive changes, I couldn't fully escape my past. My mother, Eleanor, continued to send messages. Apologies, requests for updates, veiled mentions of her financial struggles. They all came with the same weight of guilt and manipulation. Each message was a reminder of the chaos I had left behind, and I knew that responding would only drag me back. One evening, as I prepared dinner, Mr. Carter stopped by to help. We were chatting about my new job when he suddenly asked, "Do you ever think about what's next for you, beyond just escaping everything?" The question caught me off guard. I paused, considering my answer. "I'm still figuring that out," I admitted. "I've been so focused on getting away from my mom and her control that I haven't really thought about what I want my life to look like now." He smiled kindly. "Maybe it's time to start thinking about that. You've made a big step already. What's your vision for the future? His words stayed with me. That evening, alone in my apartment, I let myself dream about what I truly wanted for my life. It wasn't just about breaking free anymore. It was about building something positive and meaningful for myself. The thought was both exciting and intimidating, but it felt like a new kind of freedom. As the weeks passed, my apartment began to feel like home. I grew more confident in my choices, focused on personal growth, and deepened my connections with others. But there was one final challenge I couldn't avoid: confronting Eleanor. One quiet afternoon, as I sipped coffee, another message arrived from her. Like the others, it was filled with pleas for reconciliation and hints about her financial troubles. I stared at it, anger and sadness twisting inside me. That evening, while Mr. Carter and I prepared dinner, I brought it up. "I got another message from Eleanor today," I said, trying to sound calm. "She's still reaching out, asking for money and apologizing. I don't know what to do." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "You've done so much to protect yourself already," he said gently. "Maybe it's time to think about what's best for you now." I nodded, relieved but anxious.
I've been thinking about that.
I know I need to let go completely, but part of me still feels responsible. He placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "It's normal to feel that way, but remember, you've done everything you can. Sometimes letting go is the hardest but most important thing you can do." The next day, I made my decision. I wrote a final letter to Eleanor, setting clear boundaries. I told her I wouldn't respond to her messages anymore and that any further attempts to contact me would be ignored. It was a firm goodbye, but it was also respectful. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a bittersweet mix of sadness and relief. This was the end of a painful chapter, but it was also the beginning of a new one. A few days later, Mr. Carter and I were sitting in the park, enjoying the crisp autumn air. He watched the leaves falling around us before turning to me with a warm smile.
You've been through so much, Mia.
"I'm really proud of how far you've come. There's a light in you now that wasn't there before. You seem more at peace." His words touched me deeply. "Thank you," I said, smiling. "It's been a journey, but I think I'm finally starting to find my way. I'm learning to focus on what I want, not just what I've been trying to escape." He nodded, his eyes kind. "It's great to see you like this. I'm here for you, whatever you need." That night, as I looked out over the city lights from my apartment window, I reflected on everything I had been through. My life was still a work in progress, but I wasn't defined by my past anymore. I was learning to make decisions for myself and embrace the possibilities ahead. It wasn't just about breaking free from my mother's control. It was about finding my own path and having the courage to walk it. Though the future held uncertainties, it also held promise. For the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my life.